And at that point, I was actually working part-time at a church, and they ended up bringing me on full-time. And so I worked with youth there and did the music for the Sunday services. So that actually, I did that for many years. I think around June of 2016 is when I ended up stepping back from that.
I love bookkeeping.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping Show. I am your host, Ben Robinson, and today we have a treat. We have a very special guest, and he is just an awesome guy. I've had the pleasure, this will be my second time, of speaking with him. He is the owner of Latitude Bookkeeping Services. He lives in beautiful upstate New York, Adirondack Mountains area in a town called Plattsburgh, New York, a place that I definitely want to come and see. That's on my bucket list to the Adirondack Mountains. So I'm jealous. So I might be staying with my guest and he doesn't even know it yet. We're very excited to have to the I Love Bookkeeping Show. Welcome, David Perry.
Well, hello, Ben. It's such an honor to be here with you and talking with you today. And yeah.
Let's get this started, right?
Let's do it.
Well, let's wait till the honor things until we get done to make sure that if I don't deliver, then you can say it was a dishonor and that it was a total waste of time. But hopefully that won't be the case. Well, we got a lot of ground here to cover today. We got an excellent opportunity to work through. But as always, we like to give our audience an insight into you, who you are, kind of your experience. So I always start off with this question, like, why in the world did you decide to start a bookkeeping business?
That is a great question. There's a lot of other things that I could be doing than bookkeeping in my life right now.
Sure.
It's kind of interesting. So I went to school to be a math teacher eventually. I started out, I wanted to be an architect because I wanted to learn how to build things and create things.
George Costanza. Yes.
Yeah. I think Frank Lloyd Wright was one of my favorite architects to look at his architecture and what he was doing. But yeah, so I got a little diverted and did some civil engineering and then ended up with a liberal arts degree. And then ended up getting a math degree because I didn't know what else to do and I was good at math. So I said, hey, why not? And then I eventually ended up getting my MST to teach. So I taught secondary mathematics education for several years. And until I kept getting laid off from my teaching job, it was around 2008, 2011 time period. So there was somewhat of a recession. It kind of hit us late and I ended up not having a job, teaching math anymore. And so I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And at that point, I was actually working part-time at a church and, they ended up bringing me on full-time. And so I worked with youth there and did the music for the Sunday services. So that actually, I did that for many years. I think around June of 2016 is when I ended up stepping back from that. It's kind of a long story. Our pastor ended up getting sick and a lot of things changed. And I was, pretty much left there, one of the only leadership people there, during the time that he was sick. And so I ended up doing a lot of the administration stuff. And so I somehow found my hands in QuickBooks, desktop, and just trying to work out some of that stuff in the interim. And that was really, a lot of my introduction to bookkeeping.
Okay. All right. So you had that background. You were, like a lot of us, forced into the role, right?
Yeah. I feel like I fell into it. It just spiraled from there. It's crazy how it happened. Cause soon after that, I ended up helping another church with their bookkeeping. I don't even remember how that happened. It was just like a small gig on the side that I was doing, just a friend's church that I knew of. And that was kind of my minimal experience. And then when I stepped back in 2016, my life kind of went on this spiral of like, oh my goodness, like what am I going to do with my life now? And so I ended up working for a small business. It was actually a medical type business. Just doing the books for them. I stumbled into it. I had a friend that knew I knew how to use the software. And so they said, hey, can you help out with this? Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of through a relationship there. And so I ended up doing, basically kind of doing financial manager type work there, but mostly bookkeeping, where I got knee deep into QuickBooks Online and cleaning some stuff up. And, I think it was around that time that I thought, like this is a skill that I could use to start a business with. And I'd always wanted to start a business. I just remember being in college and being like, if I could just find the thing that I could do to start a business, then I want to start a business.
Okay. What if you had to encapsulate why you wanted to start that business in one word, what would that be? Only one word. We can come back to that. But that's one of the things that I always like to ask, because there's two words that really come up every single time that I ask that question. And it's something that my staff and my team get tired of me asking, because every single person I ask that of. But if you want to table that, we can come back to it. I see you thinking hard and the wheels going around in your head right there.
One word, that's hard, Ben.
Yeah. Well, the sentiment, right, is like, why wouldn't you just be happy doing this for someone else? Let's approach it from that angle. You could have obviously continued to freelance and been a quasi-employee with a little bit of freedom. But I mean, like, what was why not just continue to work for other people?
To build. That I think, it goes back to me wanting to be an architect. There's just something in me that wanted to create and design and to build. And I think, honestly, it would really come back to that. There's just something in me that just wants to build stuff and create. And this has really given me an avenue to be able to do those things.
I like it. Yeah. Every entrepreneur, I think, can identify with that, David. That's instrumental. So, okay, you made this decision, or you said, hey, maybe I can do this. So after that decision, and, where you are right now, let's kind of go into that.
Sure.
How many clients do you serve currently?
So currently I have 16 monthly clients, and I have several others that I do kind of pay-as-you-go bookkeeping services with and help them out every once in a while.
Okay. So when was this decision to say, hey, or this realization that you could do this as your own business? When was that? It
is in the end of 2017. I'm sorry. End of 2017.
Okay. So here we are in March of 2019. So 15 months later, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what has transpired between December of 2017 and March 2019 to help you get these 16 regular clients? That's a pretty amazing feat. That's more than one a month.
My gosh, it is.
Yeah. So what's happened in between there? You've done something right.
So December 2017, I got to get my dates right here. At the end of 2017, I was actually helping another church out, and I ended up helping them set their books up for them. And at the time, they had somebody else to do it, but then they're like, hey, this person can't do this. And I had only planned to be there until December of 2017. And so they said, when you move forward, can you continue to do our book stuff for us? And at that point, I was like, you know what? I've seriously considered starting a bookkeeping business. I would love to do that for you. So that was in December. And towards the end of December, I started really thinking about it, and I started doing Google searches. Like, is a bookkeeping business like even a thing? Like, can people make a living off a bookkeeping business?
Right.
And so I did like the Google search, and I somehow stumbled upon learntobeabookkeeper.com. And I watched I think there was three or four intro videos at the time. Mm-hmm. And I went through those videos, and I could just remember, I was actually doing things. I just remember going to, it's kind of a funny thing, but went to bring recyclables back, and I'm sitting here like listening to the video in my car on the way. Just like my wheels, my brain are churning, like, oh my goodness, like I'm doing the math, you're kind of sharing the math of, hey, this is how much you can earn being a bookkeeper and blah, blah, blah. And so I just started thinking about that and doing the math, and I was like, wow, this is a valid thing. Like this could work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So after that, you made the decision, I know, to start Bookkeeper Business Launch, which is kind of our flagship program for people who want to start a bookkeeping business. We always say that is not a magical dust that we sprinkle on you and you get 16 clients. So obviously you went through the program, but what has been your actions? Like, what have you been doing to drum up these clients over the last 15 months?
Yeah. So I jumped into the program and I started it, and, I started going through the course, and, I'm not going to say like I barreled through the course. But what I did do was I went through the lessons and then I took the stuff that I could apply. Like I knew I had to start a business, so I started with, in BBL, I started, okay, here's how you open a business, start a business, get insurance, la da 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 da. So I got all that stuff in place. And I guess it was just taking what you were sharing and applying it to what I needed to do next. So it was always about that next step for me. And so the first thing was establishing the business. And then I kind of had a client in the wings already. So I immediately brought them on within a month. I had to get all, my engagement letter and all those things situated first, before I could do that. But honestly, I think it's just been mostly relationships. I just started talking with people that I knew. They were just, hey, what are you doing nowadays? And so I would tell them what I was doing, that I just started a business. And those conversations just led to opportunities to help people with their bookkeeping.
Wow. So we call that yakety yak around here, as you well know, that we're basically telling everyone that we know in our network, hey, I'm starting a bookkeeping business. That's really not a very hard sell. It's not a sell at all. It's a piece of information, status update about you, because these are people who already know, like, and trust you.
Yes.
So David, have you spent a dime on advertising yet?
The only money I have spent on advertising is probably from my website.
Okay.
I created my website, and actually it was really helpful because, you can talk about what you're doing, but until people see something in front of them. And so, because obviously we don't have a storefront when you're a virtual bookkeeper, it was just really important for me to get my website out there as soon as possible. And as soon as I did that, I think that's when I even saw even more of an upturn, because now I talked about it, but here's my business card, go to my website, and they could see, my process, what the thing is that I was doing, what I was offering. And so for me, it was like the most important thing I probably did for marketing at the beginning.
Gotcha. So what is your niche officially?
So my niche is, my original intent was to start with nonprofits, churches, because that's what I knew. That's kind of the world I came from, has some specific things about it that I was familiar with. But around April of 2018, I mentioned I was working for a business, and it kind of came to an abrupt end, of doings that was not my own. And so I had a choice. I was like, well, I could go try to find a job working for somebody else. But I said, well, I started my business. I think I had a handful of clients at the time. And I said, well, or I could invest everything I have into my business and grow this thing. And it was a really challenging decision because I'm pretty much the sole provider of my family. And so I have as you mentioned, my wife and my two children. And so my wife and I talked about it, and we decided that, hey, if we're going to do this thing, let's give this a try and see where it takes us. So I just decided I was all in. And then I just kind of went for it from there.
Yeah. Your wife, Nicole, so it sounds like, was she aboard? Was she in agreement and accord with you on this?
She absolutely was. Yes.
That's instrumental. I always mention that if one spouse, if you're married, if one spouse is putting on the brakes and telling you not to do it, that is a clear indication that either it's not the right decision or it's not the right time. And having that support network, I mean, for you is having Nicole aboard. I mean, what's that like for you?
She's just been amazing. I mean, I just look at July through December. I mean, honestly, it was probably the most difficult place financially that I've ever been in my life. And so to have her along for that and to, support me through that. And, as she saw, okay, I was getting more clients, this is becoming more sustainable. And, up until even last night we were talking, and now we're just kind of excited about where we are. And, and she's been great. We were talking the other night about it, and she's like, I know you've been really, really busy. And just telling me she appreciated what I've been doing, and that she's being patient in this season because we know that there's going to be, a next season where some of the work is going to be a little bit lighter from here on out.
That is priceless to have that at home. So kudos to you and Nicole for making that happen. Have you seen, you mentioned July through December kind of being a very struggling time financially. Is that on the mend now that you're 3 months away from that?
Yeah, so in January, I finally got to a place where I could breathe. I thought, oh, okay, finally, financially, like this is good. And then even just the last few months, I've added a few clients, and so we're going to be more than fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love to hear knowing that all this effort that you did, you made a sacrifice, you made a bet, you made an investment in yourself, and every bet doesn't pan off. Every investment doesn't turn out to be great, but yours did, and you took a calculated risk. So bravo to you and your family and Nicole for making this happen. So, all right, like what is the best thing about working for yourself these days, as opposed to a few years ago when you were working for others or working for the church? Like, what's the best change in your life there?
well, I think the best change for me, I mean, a lot of it obviously is freedom. I mean, a lot of the whys for me going into this is, we as a family, we really want to create experiences, for us to connect together as a family, and that's really important to us. So I think that's probably been the big game changer for us, is just being able to spend time together, and to have a flexible schedule and have the freedom to do the things that we want to do and dream about doing with our lives.
All right. And are you able to do that now?
I'd say we're getting closer to that. I would say yes in the terms of my schedule is so flexible that if something comes up, I can change and adjust to that, and we schedule times to do things as a family together. So I would say that there is that now, but I can see more of this in the future as just some things settle out. When you onboard people, it's obviously takes a little bit of extra effort and time. And I've onboarded a lot of people the last few months. So I'm kind of getting through that, but I'm excited for the more freedom and flexibility that I see coming.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I always joke and say, hey, the great thing about being an entrepreneur is you get to work half days and you get to pick which 12. So there's a little bit of truth and irony to that, but obviously I think that kind of ties into our opportunity we're going to be talking about here today. But before we go over to that, I want to ask kind of one final thing. Looking back at the last 15 months from the time you said, hey, I should start a bookkeeping business, to where you are today, if you were speaking to someone who's considering that, like, what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give to them, or something that you wish you knew or had done differently, or you did well, that is just imparting to people who are trying to make this decision? Do I start a bookkeeping business?
Yeah, I think the opportunity is there. And the field is so ripe for what we're doing and what we're offering, especially the way you guys present it and just bringing value to people. And that's what I've mainly focused on, is how can I serve people? How can I bring value to people? But in that, it just going back and thinking through January, just all of last year really is, I mean, first of all, you really do have to have a handle on the bookkeeping stuff. Just knowing what you're doing is a good thing. And I say that because, the people that I ended up talking with, they typically had a bad experience with their previous bookkeepers. And so for me to bring and offer what I ultimately ended up being able to offer to them, just knowing where stuff is supposed to go and how to do the bookkeeping is super, super important. Obviously if you're new to it, you just got to get your feet in it and jump into it and do it and start kind of small and learn. So yeah, just getting into the bookkeeping and practically doing it and being good at it. And then I guess the other thing that I would say is, like, for someone like me, I get really overwhelmed because I see all the things that I could do. And I'm like, oh, I want to do this, and this, and this. And it's just so overwhelming because, like, I know I can bring so much value in all these areas, but this is where I am right now. And so in that, I would say to focus on what that next thing is that you need to do. At first for me, it was, here's my engagement letter and my proposal. Like, how do I make this as nice and presentable as possible so that people will be drawn into that? And that's what I focused on, is I have the bookkeeping stuff. Now, how do I present this? And I just kept getting better at packaging it and presenting it and refining those things.
Absolutely. That's sage advice. And I appreciate you sharing that with everyone, David. So good. Okay. So I think that what we were just speaking about is that, hey, you have a vision for where you want this to go, maybe some more freedom. Obviously, when we're starting a business, it is chaotic. There is no way around that. We want to reduce that chaos and create order as quick as possible. But why don't you tee up for us, like, what's the opportunity in front of you that we want to discuss here today?
Sure. So as I've started to grow, and I think I mentioned I started out being with churches, and when I kind of hit that place that I needed to get business, I just ended up going into the business world. And so, I mean, ultimately, I'm serving small businesses that are small businesses with low retail. I've stayed away from like anything that's high retail or restaurant-ish because there's more hard deadlines for me, and I didn't want that. But so I started adding businesses, and things have obviously been growing. And so honestly, I don't feel like I'm at the point where I absolutely need someone to help me, but I'm looking, 6 to 10 months down the road saying, if this continues to grow, like this is going to consume more of my time for one. And there's this I don't know how to say the word. There's this desire in me to keep growing, but at the same time, I do have things I want to do. I want the freedom. I want to work, 20, 25 hours a week if possible. And so the opportunity in front of me right now is, how can I bring somebody into my bookkeeping business to do things the way that I'm doing it? I know a lot of people talk about a brand, but there's a way I do things, and I want to continue that with whoever I bring on. And so I guess that's the opportunity in front of me, and I feel like I have absolutely no idea how to walk through that process, or even like what that should look like. And I guess the real challenge for me is I look past, just the stuff that I'm doing in my business, and I really want to contribute to our community. My niche is really kind of local at this point, because there's this desire for community in our area, and relationships and community has been just a prominent thing that stood out to me. And I can see that as my relationships with the business owners start to overlap, especially as I get referred from one to the other. But yeah, like I really want to contribute to a thriving community. And I feel like the stuff that we're doing with BBL and even money guides, like that's something that I can bring to my community that's going to help people, and we're all going to benefit from that. And so in saying that, I guess, yeah, I want to bring bookkeepers on to do what I'm doing, but I also realize that I'm not going to be the only person that can be on this mission, right? So like, how do we bring other people into that to impact our community?
Okay. So before we get into that's a great and a very common challenge, or actually it's an opportunity, right? Because it enables us to do what we're best at. We can work less, earn more, all of that sort of thing. But let's talk about the vision that you have for your business, because decisions that we make are all in context, right, to what our vision is. So let's look 3 years out. Let's lean out 3 years and say, what does your business look like? Like, how many clients do you serve? What's your income level going to be? You don't have to get specific with that, but like, what's a day in your life look like, in a week, in a month, and approaching it from the angle of your life, and then fitting your business around that. Like, kind of give me if you can, minute or two vision, leaning out 3 years in advance.
Sure. Well, personally, like my wife and I decided like we're going to pick the income level that we're going to live at. So if we make money beyond that, awesome. And, our goal is like, we just want to be able to give and look for opportunities to help other people. So that's part of our goal. It's something that we've always wanted to do. We just hadn't had the resources to do that. And so we're excited to look to a season to be able to do that. But other than that, again, I hope to work 20, 25 hours a week. I mean, that would be ideal for me. And so the other part, you mentioned how many clients do I want to bring on? And I guess I don't know the answer to that, because it scares me, because I see where I am now, and I'm like, I could just keep doing this and lose sight of the things that are really important to me. I think there's like a real temptation there to grow bigger than what I can even handle.
I got you. So first action item here, David, and I want you to write this down and we'll come back to it as well, is to get clear on this vision and work with Nicole on this, and like lean out 3 years and then 1 year and say, what does a day look like for us, our family? What does a week look like? What is a month? What is a vacation season, summer, spring break, all of these different things? Because and I say this is indirectly for what we're going to be talking about here today, hiring somebody, getting somebody on the team. But it all fits around this, right? Like if you're like, hey, I want to work 50 hours a week and I want, that changes what we're going to be saying. But so many times we just start throwing like, and I speak from, I'm the proverbial preaching to the choir here, right? When I'm saying to myself that I didn't have intentionality when building my business. I thought it was all about striving and getting more and more clients and making more and more money. And then I find out that my 2-year-old doesn't even know who I am because it's the throes of busy season and I'm never around. Now she's 18 and about to graduate high school. So it was a long time ago, but those sorts of things hit home. So your first action item is for you and Nicole, since you're of one accord, and that's great, is to really dive into what that looks like. Because now what we do is we create, when we're driving down the highway, there's a white line on the right and a yellow line on the left, and we're supposed to stay in between those two. And there's grooves in the road. Well, if those lines weren't there, it's a little bit more difficult. It's a lot more difficult for us to determine what we can be doing. There's latitude within that. Some people like to hug the white line. Some people like to hug the yellow line. Some people like to be all over the road because they're texting and driving, but they're staying within those bounds. They should be. So that's kind of a first thing. It's indirectly what we're talking about here, but it is going to be so much easier when you have this in front of you and you're able to say, hey, the decision that I'm going to make, is this moving us towards the vision that we have for our family, or is it moving us away? Because it's doing one or the other. All right. So I would get real focused on what that is. And that's not something that you do 5 minutes, on an afternoon. Make this a fun outing. All right. Do a date night with Nicole. Right. Take it and let's just talk and let's have fun. Let's go have ice cream when it's warmer there and not snow on the ground. Let's make snow ice cream. That's kind of the first thing for you guys to do, is to get real serious about what your business is going to do for your life and not what your life is going to do in context of your business. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I feel like we've been in survival mode for the last 6 to 8 months. So now this is a great time for us to look beyond, hey, I just need to survive, and like, hey, what are we really moving towards here?
Well, you're better than me because I was probably in that 6 to 8 years. So you're 12 times faster than I was at this realization. So kudos to you for that.
It certainly doesn't feel very fast.
No. It isn't. I mean, that's why you're a great entrepreneur, David. It was because you want things now. You want all the opportunities. We're, again, preaching to the choir because I understand exactly where you are in this. But it so helps when you have this vision, this compelling vision in front of you, and bring it to life. I don't want to go into all the things we talk about here, but creating a vision board, if you're an artsy-fartsy type of person, if you want to write it down, if you want to do a video, make this something fun. It's really cool when you and your spouse can do this together, make it a fun activity, not something like, oh, crap, we got to talk about our vision and stuff like that. It's not supposed to be like that. If it feels like that, then we're doing it the wrong way. Okay? So there is exercise number 1 for you to do right there. Now, let's talk about the specific thing, and that's hiring somebody, right? That's kind of what the gist of your challenge, your opportunity that's in front of you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you really don't want to hire anybody. You don't. You want the result of what hiring somebody does. Okay? So let's talk about it from this point. And people say that all the time. Hey, I want to hire somebody. Hey, I want to define my processes. No, you don't. You want what it's going to do for you. The process or the hire is the feature, but the benefit is what to you? When you're considering hiring somebody, bringing somebody aboard, what's the benefit to you and your family and your income?
For me, I think the benefit is just time. And just taking on some of the tasks that I kind of not overly excited to do. I think I recognize for me that, my highlight and exciting part is onboarding somebody. It's going through their books, it's doing cleanup, it's solving problems, and then creating a system that functions like seamlessly. And I think that once that system is created, and I spend a lot of time up front thinking about, the client, what they need, and where we're moving towards. And, I have a plan for them, 3 to 6 months down the road as far as what we're refining. So that's like the really exciting part for me. I love that part of it. And so for me, and then, coming back to the regular monthly bookkeeping stuff, I do it and it's fine. It honestly doesn't take me, it doesn't consume a ton of my time. But it's enough where I'm like, hey, I could be doing a lot of other things that are more exciting than this to me. So,
okay.
I think
so. What are those more exciting things other than onboarding new clients? Which you're a total nerd for saying that, because that is a chaotic time. So I already see that you're a guy who likes to take chaos and bring order about it. But once that newness, I can tell a lot about you by this. You're a special project type of guy. You like variety in what you do, most likely. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. But what are the things that you like on your to-do list, if you were to look back over the last week, things that you just cringe at? You're like, oh, I don't want to do that, but it has to get done. But I'm going to just bear through this. What are some of those activities?
I mean, like processing transactions and, even just reconciling. And I mean, it's just the, everyday bookkeeping type stuff. Those are the ones that I would rather put to the side than actually get to them and do them.
Okay. All right. So the routine.
Right. Yeah. I'm not, I guess I'm just not a routine kind of person. Like I like structure and order and systems, but I don't like to have to be the one to, to be the guy inside the system doing all the stuff.
Okay. All right. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's upon you to know your strengths and know your weaknesses, and to, when necessary, outsource, delegate, automate, or stop doing on the weaknesses and do more of your strengths, and more specifically, your unique abilities. And I've given this, and I'll give it to you here in just a second, the task audit that was given to me by my coach, Cameron Harold, who's a great guy. Wrote a book called Double Double, which I suggest that everybody read. I do not get any kind of affiliate commission on that. So Cameron, if you're listening to this, I want some affiliate commission, because I always recommend that. But a task audit, and we'll come back to that here in just a second. But one of the concepts that I want you to get, you've got this vision and you're going to be making these decisions, and you're going to simply ask yourself, is this moving toward or away from my vision? It's doing one or the other. But one of the misconceptions that I had when I was building my business was that, hey, I've got all this work. I've got all the things that are falling through the cracks. So therefore, I just need to hire people and throw them at that, which I did, and I failed miserably. And what I learned out of that is that we have to have processes before people. Okay. So let me ask you this, like, how are your processes right now? Could I come into your business and take it over by the processes that you have outlined, that you have documented somewhere, whether electronic or paper? How could I fit into your business right now if, you were going away for a week, you said, hey, Ben, I'm going to Haiti and take over. I don't know why you'd go to Haiti, but you're going to Haiti and take over my business for the week. Could I do that?
I would say that is a glaring weakness that I currently have observed and recognized.
No, it's an opportunity. It's not a weakness. It's an opportunity.
Yeah. And, honestly, I think because I've grown so fast, it is, most of it, I would say, is in my head, although I've started to write some of these things out. But, one of the things that I was hoping to do next was I really want to start almost like a handbook for my current clients, so that, like what you're saying, somebody could step in and see, oh, here's the tasks. And like, even, I'm kind of a nerd. Like, I want to create some videos. So, hey, here's this client and here's all the things that I have to do to make sure that they're taken care of well. So, that's something that I want to have almost like packaged there. So if somebody was helping me, they could kind of step in and not only that, but if something happens to me, I thought about that side of it too. Like, here are all my clients, and if something happens to me and I'm not able to do what I need to do for them, like, who's going to come alongside and do those things? Or how are they going to even have a clue what's happening in their books without those kinds of resources?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a hack. You want to hack something that you can do to double duty?
Love hacks.
Okay, you have a screen capture software, right? Like a Snagit or Camtasia or something?
Yeah, I actually started using, it's not Wistia, but it's Soapbox. Soapbox has been a fun resource.
Yeah, you use whatever that you want, but the next time you start to do tasks for your clients, here's what I want you to do. I want you to fire up Snagit or Soapbox, whatever you're using, and I want you to do the work. So if you're working on client ABC, you're doing the work and you're speaking what you're doing. Okay. So let's say that I'm categorizing transactions. I'm setting up bank rules. I'm saying, hey, this vendor does this sort of thing right here. And I try to think global processes first. One of the things you want to do is to have your processes the same for every single client with as little deviations as possible. That's one of the reasons in which we stress being in a niche, because it makes you more efficient. So you're firing up, you're doing the work, and you're just talking to yourself. You kind of seem like you're a little crazy, but you're walking through and you're giving more detail than you think should be given. Okay. And you're recording all this. Okay. So at the end of this recording, maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. But you have done the work. You've gotten it done. And now you've documented your system. Now it's raw. So what you're going to do from here is that you're going to take that video and you're going to upload it to rev.com, a transcription agency. Okay. They charge $1 a minute, so it's not cheap, but it is the best investment that you can make, because here's why. You have a video now that shows me what I need to do. Then you have a transcript that, because people, depend on who you bring on, some people learn visually, some people learn kinesthetically, some people learn, through skywriting. So what you're doing is creating multiple media. But then from that transcript, you're going to clean it up, and you can do that yourself, which I recommend at first, or you can hire somebody on Upwork. They could do that in an hour. We're talking about, for a process, probably you spending $100 a process. Okay. And by the way, this will be recorded, and I'll provide you with this. I see you there writing feverishly, but we'll do this as well to give you the recording. But what you do is, now you've done the job, you've documented it in video form. Now you have it transcribed, you have it cleaned up. And then the final thing that you're going to do is you're going to create a checklist. Now, a checklist should be, and I want you to write this down. This is how your checklist should look. Write down this, do a Google search for Cessna 172S checklist. Cessna 172 is an aircraft. I learned this in the Air Force. The checklist that you create should be able to fit on one page. And when I say one page, it's a page that's probably like the size of 3 index cards. So if you think of 3, it's not an 8.5 by 11. If your checklist can't fit on there in 12 font and there's more than 8 steps, then it's not a checklist. It's a recipe for chaos. Okay. But what you've done, though, okay, let's summarize. Done the work, getting paid on that, got it transcribed, cleaned up the transcription. Okay. So take rid of the raw transcript. So now you have the video where you walked them through. You have the transcript that's cleaned up. Then now you create a checklist out of that transcript. And so now you have a process in place. Is it the perfect process? No, but you've got a process defined. And you do that for every single process that you do. And if there's anything that's unique for each client, what I like to do is one client unique video. So I can say, hey, here's the process. And then I defined, like, let's just say, and I would start with one process and then get it to 3. And those processes should be the ones that are client-centric, but they're ones that you don't enjoy doing. So the monthly deliverable, doing the books on a monthly basis. But break it down by process. Default to making them, if you're thinking, this is probably going to be a 40-minute video, then break it down into 2 different videos. Try to make the videos, sweet spot is like 10 minutes, 7 to 10 minutes. If it's more than that, try to break it up into things, because then your checklists are going to come out of that. Checklists don't need to be every freaking thing. They're like the major things that need to be done. Like, was the bank account reconciled? Check. Right? Now, there's a lot of things that have to happen behind that. That's why the video's there. That's why the detailed transcript is there. But this is like the end. When I'm checking my work to make sure I did all that, I'm checking the highlighted things, the big things that need to be done. Okay? So there is your process creation process. All right? That's a very basic and rudimentary way of doing it. But I had a Brandy in our group, in our Bookkeeper Elite group. She did this, and she's like a geek on it now. Like, I explained this process to her, and she is just loving it and the results that it's getting. Okay. Now, we have not talked about hiring anybody yet. Okay. So I want to get to that, but does that process of creating a process make sense? And do you see some power that you can get out of that?
No, I absolutely. Yeah, I should say yes. I absolutely do. I love it. And I've somewhat thought of some of these things, but you definitely filled in a few gaps there for me. Here's a practical question on that. So So say I create this checklist and I create these videos, like where would you recommend storing those? Like just on a Google Drive in a folder, or does it matter?
Yeah, you can wherever that you want to. We're in the process. We use a something called Praxio, which is a new software that one of a business that I'm a partner in, they've created it. It's praxio.com, but you don't have to use that. You can use Google Drive, someplace that you can access it. Your team can access it once you get it. If your clients need to have access to it, but once you kind of get into this, you're going to start building up quite a bit of videos. But just, Google Drive is fine at first. Start with basic. Don't make it too overly complicated. Don't try to do too many things. I wouldn't add any new technology to this because you're already doing something new by creating a process and documenting it. Don't add anything else. But at some point, you'll outgrow that most likely. Maybe you don't, and that's great. Keep it simple.
That's great.
That makes sense?
It does.
Okay. All right. So we still haven't talked about people on all of that, but the real reason that I wanted to go through that, because before you hire somebody, you've got to get these processes down. And I would start with the ones that turn the dial, meaning they get client work done, they get you paid, they make your client happy. All right. Those are the things you want to start with, and the ones that you really don't like doing. So for you, with speaking with you, the monthly deliverable, like start from the very basic level, build up all the processes there, and then go through and do any client-specific videos that you need to do for aberrations. Client-specific videos should be 5 to 10 minutes, because if they're more than that, that means that your clients are so different that there's inefficiencies in that right there. Right. Hey, I know that we talked to this, but this client right here, we got to do, we got to stand on your head and log into this website. It's in Russia, and take a boat and a ferry over here and go get, that stuff just means that you're inefficient there. Ask me how I know. But that's the first thing we want to do. Right. So I have not addressed your issue yet. Right. I've told you, hey, David, you got to have this vision. And then now we got to create these processes, but you have to embrace what this is. Okay, and this is your freedom lever.
So I have a fear in the midst of this. So one of the things that makes me good at talking to my clients about what, going over the reports with them and giving them any insight that I have is really intimately knowing what is going on inside the bookkeeping system. Mm-hmm. So say you bring somebody on to... You get all these systems in place and somebody's doing, kind of the monthly deliverables. Now, would we expect that person to share with the client as well? Or if I were to do that, like how do I stay in touch enough with what's happening between the person who's doing the monthly stuff for me and then my interaction with my clients?
Yeah, I wish that we had time to address that, David, here today. And I'd love to do a follow-up, because that is something basically you're going from worker bee to queen bee, or king bee in this case, meaning you got to take your hat off that you're actually doing it. And how do you review it? How do you review it and yet stay informed in all of that? And it's an art to that. And that's something that it's a difficult transition, but it is, once you figure it out, it's liberating, because you're not in the minutia. But there is a way to do that. Just kind of a quick 30-second is you're still going through a process where you're looking at things. You're looking at trends. You're looking at, hey, how can I smell BS on this? How can I make sure that I'm able to answer questions? It's not abdicating this role to somebody that you've hired, and now you're just going to walk into the meeting and you're looking at it for the first time. No, that's not what happens. You're going to be ultra prepared. But the great thing about this is that the time that you used to spend doing the minutia, now after you do your review, and you can learn how to do that pretty quick, now you can look at it from an analytical, becoming an advisor, saying, how can I help them to affect change? Because let's say that it used to take you an hour to do that on your own, and now it's taking you 15 minutes. Well, guess what? You've got 45 minutes that you can spend, or let's just say 15 minutes that you can spend, and 30 minutes you can spend hanging out with your family. Right? So you're looking at it from a critical angle. So it enables you to do what you do best. Okay. Now, this brings me to the task audit. But before we get there, are you kind of in accord with what I'm talking about here so far?
Yeah, I am. I guess I now that you say that, I can see it. It's, I think when you add something new, there is that fear that, oh my goodness, like, is this just going to turn into total chaos and I'm not going to know what's going on
You'll
anymore?
feel like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You will feel, and I'm going through that right now because I'm handing over a lot of stuff that I'm doing to my VA, things that I should not have been doing. And I'll tell you, in the midst of it, it does feel like chaos. Okay. Because it's new, right? I mean, the definition of stress is that you're going through something that you're not used to going through. So yeah, it definitely is. But then once you get a couple of weeks into it or a month, then you're going to start to feel the release, the way in which you don't have to be doing all of this. But yeah, absolutely. When you're going through this, it's going to feel chaos. So that is natural.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when I look back in the last 15 months, I mean, it's kind of been like that the whole time. So it's just a new, different task to tackle.
Welcome to entrepreneurship. If you're the type of person who wants never to feel chaos, then you do not need to be in any business, because it's, and you mentioned that the fear, right? It's feel the fear and do it anyway. We've got to be able to bust through that. So task audit. Okay. And I promise that we will get to the person, but we're not there yet. I don't want you to go out there because it's a way in which you're leaving your success, the person that you're hiring, the client, you're leaving success up to chance. And that's not what we want. We want it to be as 90% above likelihood that it's going to succeed. But when we talk about the task audit, what I want you to do is to basically write down over the course of the week, the month, every single task that you do. Book appointments with clients, go get the bank feeds, go refresh those, categorize expenses, everything that you do inside of your business. Try to collect, payment, whatever the case may be. You're just writing down everything that you're doing. You're not really thinking, should I be doing that yet? Right? We're just doing and listing all of the tasks. Okay. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. Now, the next thing that you want to do with those tasks is look at them and say, what are the things that are my unique ability? And again, I'll have to give credit where credit is due, and that's to Cameron Harold, my coach. I did a form of this before, but he really put this on steroids, and it helped me tremendously. And that's where we go through and say, which ones are my unique abilities? And here's what I mean by unique ability. Something that I am dang good at, I can do it with excellence, and it charges me up. So for you, that's not reconciling bank accounts. For you, that's doing the onboarding, right? That could be onboarding. But there should be probably 5 to 7 tasks that are your unique ability, meaning that you're really baller at them, and you could do them all day long, and you probably would do it for free, right? It's just you feel excited about that. Now, at the other end of that spectrum are things that you're competent at. Means you can get them done. Come see, come saw. You're not great at them. You can do them, you get them done. But those are ones that you're competent at. Those are the ones that you want to offboard as quick as possible. Those are the ones that you want to create processes for as quick as possible. Okay, because you're not doing yourself a service. You're not doing your clients a service by doing these. You're basically just doing them because they have to get done. So these are the ones that you would want to start with. So here is where most bookkeeping professionals go awry. They say, I'm so dang busy, therefore I'm going to go hire a bookkeeper and she is going to handle this client from A to Z. Well, in that are some things that you love to do. And in that, there's no processes that are defined. And in that, it's sheer chaos. And that's not what we want. Okay? So what I want you to do when you're talking about hiring, let me hold on just a second. Are you with me so far?
I am. Yes, I'm processing and taking it all in.
Okay. Now that we described the unique abilities, and then on the other end of the spectrum, competent. In between, there's something called excellent. That means you're really, really good at them, but they don't charge you up. Whereas the unique ability, you're really, really good at them, and they charge you up. Okay. So those things are excellent. So we want to start with the things that we're competent at and offboard those. And I want you to start with one task to offboard. Okay, so going back to your task audit, what is one, and I could go into it, and I've done another show on the task audit more in depth, so I won't go into that here. But like, what is the one task that you could get off that's low-hanging fruit, that's easy to give to somebody else to do? that you've documented the process. Okay, so we want to start with those that are the easiest, the ones that are, you can offboard, and you're not going to be looking to hire somebody like an employee right now. You're not looking to hire somebody even part-time. You're looking to engage somebody like a VA. Okay, so VAs are superheroes, in my opinion. The right VA, having them they will change your business life. So I like to start with that. I like to start with things that are lowest in technical skills. I obviously don't want to start with, hey, why don't you go over here and create a statement of cash flows and let's do some. No, I want to start with, hey, will you take care of all my scheduling? All right, things that don't really turn the needle and stuff like that. And you can find that VA off of Upwork. There's other services. At first, you may only hire this person for 2 hours a week. Great. That's all you need. You're not going to commit yourself financially to them. You're going to start offboarding stuff. But then the next week, you're like, hey, you know what? You did those, Beth. You got those 2 off. Just before this call, I was on on Slack with my VA, and I was like, you know what? Here's something I don't need to be doing anymore. I gave that to her, and she's already had it done within like a minute. And now it was taking me 5-10 minutes a month. And now that I never, ever have to do that again. All right. And so I'm adding things, but I'm not trying to say, and again, this is where most people mess up. You're basically taking a whole bunch of tasks, maybe 40, and throwing it at one person. And that's a recipe for disaster. Why not start with one and make that one that you don't really want to do and start adding to that?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think, I even see this with some of the businesses that I work with, and, they hire somebody even part-time as a bookkeeper, and then, they got to find more stuff for them to do to keep them, give them more hours, and they just feel the pressure of that. But, doing something like this allows to offload things a little bit at a time without the pressure to try to like sustain somebody else's, life and family. Yeah. So I really like that.
Now, once you start to do that, you should start to this should start to become something that you're addicted to. You're looking for stuff, right? Because you're starting to feel the release. You're starting to feel, hey, this is enabling me to do more stuff. This is enabling me to do more stuff that's higher value. Another thing that you can do in that task audit is you can assign a fictional dollar an hour range, right? So what I do is to say, okay, what's the $10 an hour? What's the $50 an hour? What's the $100 an hour? And what's the $1,000 an hour type of work? Don't get caught up on the amounts. Just get caught up on the thought process, right? So like doing a bank feed, that's $10 an hour work. Presenting to my clients the financial statements, that's $100 an hour work. Going and speaking at a BNI, that's probably $1,000 an hour work, right? And it's, again, not the actual hour. You say, well, nobody's ever going to pay me $1,000 an hour. Just go with it, right? Because those are things that you go get a client and you have them for 7 years. Don't tell me that's not $1,000 an hour work. That is that, right? So you want to start with that $10 an hour work, and that $10 an hour work should probably match up well with what you said you're competent at, but you really, really don't like to do, and start to work your way up there as well. But start with the basics, baby steps, Bob, baby steps. That's from the movie What About Bob? Not you. So does that make sense?
It does. I think the few things that I struggle in that is, so one of I taught for many years, and one of the things that's in me is like this desire to develop somebody else and to coach in a way. Mm-hmm. And so, to bring somebody on even, part-time, and to start them off with even some small stuff and maybe doing, the tasks that I'm competent and don't like to do with an account, for example. There's this desire in me to want to develop that and to not just pay them the minimum, but how can I, add value to them and to their lives as well. So,
absolutely. Yeah. You should be doing that. I mean, I see the value that we are adding to our VA's life directly. I mean, as a matter of fact, we were using an agency and we hired her. She was so dang good. And, she lives in the mountains, the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, and she's able to live this lifestyle because of virtual. So we do that, but we didn't start there, right? So in order to feed others, you have to feed yourself first. It's the old, in case of cabin pressurize, put your oxygen mask on before you help others, because you're not going to be any good if you're passed out and they're passed out too, right? So, You got to be whole before you can help others. But you're doing this indirectly, right? So let's imagine that I was your VA and I was looking for something and I was a single mom or whatever. And you gave me 2 hours of work. Maybe it was at $20 an hour. That's not big, but over the course of the next 2 months, you got me up to 20 hours. You are adding value to my life, right? It doesn't have to be somebody that's you could, if you're committed to really bringing people in your town, I guarantee you there's VAs that are in your town, right? In your area. You could do it that way. I like to really kind of refine, I like just to start small. And then I think that what you're doing, you are helping that, right? There's a guy that I follow, Andy Stanley. He says, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone, right? So there's a lot of wisdom in that. Like, we want to help all these people, but we can't. We can help one at a time, and we start small, but we have to make sure that we're doing it in a fiscally responsible way for our business and ourselves and taking care of our family. And that's not being selfish, right? You have to take care of your family first, and then you can help others. And good news is that you're getting to that point, right? This is all kind of wrapping it together.
Could you give any example of like taking a task that you would hand off to a virtual assistant? Because I guess not doing that before, I just feel like I don't even know what that looks like, or like what kind of task do I send them and how do I measure that? And like,
absolutely. Okay. So one of the things that I came into every single morning was 150 emails. Okay. So every single morning I come in, from students and from people who wanted me to talk and then just junk. I come into 150 emails. There's probably 5 that I need to respond to. So before, what was I doing? I was going in and categorizing and replying and blah, it's all this stuff. Now I come in every single morning and there's 5 emails, 3 emails, because Beth has taken care of all the rest of them because they're very standard. She can delete some of them. She knows how to reply to some of them, obviously replying as her. So I come in now, and what used to take me 30 minutes takes me 3 minutes on a normal morning. Okay. Now, how did we do that? Well, Beth and I recorded a quick video of my thing. So I did the exact same process. I didn't get it transcribed, but I just recorded a video. I sent it over to Beth and I said, hey, here's something I'd like for you to do is take over my inbox. And she looked at the video. We had a call that lasted about 5 minutes. The next morning she was doing it. And she'll occasionally have a question like, hey, there's this email I don't know what to do with. I'll tell her, oh, yeah, that's a receipt. Just go ahead and put it in the receipts folder. Boom. So I've gotten 27 minutes extra every single day by doing that. That's huge.
It's like magic.
It is. I mean, it's so basic and it's so simple, yet we have to be intentional about all this, right? We have to be intentional. We have to think simple, because if we're not intentional and we don't think simple, then we go towards chaos. And as you can tell, I've used that word a lot because it's a bad word. We want order. We're bookkeeping professionals, by golly. We want order in our lives. So that's just an example. And start with something basic like that. Don't start with the reconciliation. You probably don't like answering and categorizing emails and all that stuff. Maybe that is something that you like, which you need to seek professional help for that if you like it. But maybe it's doing your calendar. There's just a whole host of things. And it really kind of starts with that task audit. But before that, it starts with like your vision for your business. But you can do these in tandem. You should start doing the task audit now. You should define that vision, because you're going to be offboarding these things regardless of what your vision says, because you don't need to be doing them. Okay. So as you and Nicole start to develop the vision that you have for your family, over here, you're already creating a more efficient machine by offboarding these sorts of things to your virtual assistant. And I'll tell you, you could probably get so huge. Now, once you've filled up your virtual assistant, or that virtual assistant cannot handle the task, then you can start to think, okay, well, who is it that I need? Okay, well, maybe it's a virtual assistant who also has bookkeeping experience. Maybe it's a bookkeeping professional, right? Maybe it's a CPA. I don't know, but we don't start there, because that's going to cost you a lot of money, and you're not going to get the efficiency. As a matter of fact, you'll get the opposite of that. You'll be like, why in the heck? You'll have the sentiment that so many people have. Why don't I just go back to where it was when I started? It was so simple. I could just handle the handful of clients, but now I got all these people. What? Because you have a crappy system or no system, and you've done it all wrong. This is the right way to do it. Again, ask me how I know.
Yeah. I really love that. I'm just thinking about this and the power in that, because, he was faithful in little, is faithful in much, and just being able to give somebody a small task and to trust them with that and to see, hey, they're doing this really well in a low pressure situation. and then being able to add stuff to that, like that makes me feel more comfortable about offloading something that, for me, I have the tendency to hold on tight to those things. I mean, I think delegating is probably one of my most difficult things for me to do. And that's probably why. So I love that model of doing it because it gives me some confidence that, hey, I can go further in this thing, or I can kind of step back and be like, oh, I don't need you to do that anymore for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do that, David. So let's wrap this up here today. So tell me your action items as a result of our conversation here today.
Whew, I have a whole list. I mean, I guess if I were to take probably the 3 top ones, just kind of doing a task audit and trying to find all the things that I do, and then processes before people, so documenting my processes. And I think those 2 things kind of lead into, excuse me, just my unique ability, the excellence, and the competence thing, and just kind of going from there and sorting out those things for my task audit. And then I think the next step for there is to find, somebody who I can give some task to and kind of feel that out and test that out and see how that's going to go, how that's going to work.
What's the big one though?
Oh, the vision.
Vision. There you
Yes.
go. There you go. Yeah. Make sure and do that. Don't skip that one. We always like to skip over it, but do not skip. All right, David. Well, it's been a real treat to work with you here today and speak with you. Any follow-up questions for me before we head on over and start doing the work again here today?
No, I think this is great. This gives me a lot to think about and to, put on top of all the other things that I'm doing in life.
Yeah. Well, understand this is a lever. This gets results. This is going to free up time in the end. It's going to free up boatloads of time in the end.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think it's like anything else. At first you get these great ideas of do this, this, and this, and it's very overwhelming at first. And just going back to even going through BBL and starting the business, it's like you just pick the next task in front of you and focus on it and work through it. So I'm excited to have some things to think about and to work through. So thank you for this. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Now, if you guys would like to get in touch or learn more about David, you can go to www.latitudebks.com. So like short for books, latitudebks.com, or you can email him, david@latitudebks.com. David Perry, thank you so much for being with us here today. Listen, if you would like to hear more great conversations just like today's, then I want you to head on over to ilovebookkeeping.com. There, you're going to find all of the shows, the notes, and some other great goodies that we have for you there. Now, if you'd like to be a guest on the I Love Bookkeeping show, there is a link that says Be a Guest. Go in there, and we'll walk you through the process of getting on the show. And finally, to discover more about our programs, go to the courses page on the ilovebookkeeping.com site. There you have it, another great episode of I Love Bookkeeping. Thank you for being a proud listener, and thank you for being a bookkeeping professional. Enjoy the rest of your week.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as hard as it looks. Be a money guide, a profit coach, step up your game and see